we're back. I honestly just hit stop it and play again. It's Shell Rosie, by the way. Chapter 3, Settling the Northern Colonies, page 45, Building the Bay Colony. These common convictions deeply shaped the infant colony's life. Soon after the colonists' arrival, the franchise was extended to all freemen, adult males who belonged to the Puritan congregations, which in time came to be called collectively the Congregational Church. Unchurched men remained voteless in provincial elections, as did all women. On this basis, about 2/5 of adult males enjoyed the franchise in provincial affairs, as far larger proportion than in contemporary England. Town governments, which conducted much more important business, were even more inclusive. They are all male property holders, and in some cases other residents as well enjoyed the priceless boon of publicly discussing local issues, often with much heat, and of voting on them by a majority rule show of hands. Yet the provincial government, liberal by the standards of the time, was not a democracy. The able government withheld and distrusted the commons as near the meaner sort, and thought that democracy was the meanest and worst of all kinds of government. "If the people be governors," asked one Puritan clergyman, "who shall be governed?" True. The freemen annually elected the governor and his assistants, as well as a representative assembly called the General Court, but only Puritans, the visible saints, who alone were eligible for church membership, could be freemen. And according to the doctrine of the covenant, the whole purpose of government was to enforce God's laws, which applied to believers and non-believers alike. Moreover, non-believers as well as believers paid taxes for the government and for the government-supported church. Religious leaders thus wielded enormous influence in the Massachusetts Bible Commonwealth. They powerfully influenced admission to church membership by conducting public interrogations of persons claiming to have experienced conversion. Prominent among the early clergy was fiery John Cotton, educated in England's Cambridge University, a Puritan Sidell. He immigrated to Massachusetts to avoid persecution for his criticism of the Church of England. In the Bay Colony, he devoted his considerable learning to defending the government's duty to enforce religious rules. Profoundly pious, he sometimes preached and prayed up to 6 hours in a single day. But the power of the preachers was not absolute. A congregation had the right to hire and fire its minister and to set a salary. Clergymen were also barred from holding formal political office. Puritans in England had suffered too much at the hands of a political Anglican clergy to permit in the New World another unholy union of religious and government power. In a limited way, the Bay colonists thus endorsed the idea of the separation of church and state. The Puritans were a worldly lot, despite or even because of their spiritual intensity. Like John Winthrop, they believed in the doctrine of a calling, to do God's work on earth. They shared in what was later called the Protestant ethic, which involved serious commitment to work and to engagement in worldly pursuits. Legend to the contrary, they also enjoyed simple pleasures. They plentifully drank heartily, sang songs occasionally, and made love mostly monogamously. I can't cite. Like other peoples of their time in both America and Europe, they passed laws aimed at making sure these pleasures stayed simple by repressing certain human instincts. In New Haven, for example, a young married couple was fined 20 shillings for the crime of kissing in public, and in later years, Connecticut came to be dubbed the Blue Law State. It was so named for the blue paper on which the representative laws, also known as sumptuary laws, were printed. Yet to the Puritans, life was serious business, and hellfire was real, a hell where sinners shriveled and shrieked in vain for divine mercy. An immensely popular poem in New England, selling one copy for every 20 people, was clergyman Michael Wigglesworth's Day of Doom, 1662. Especially horrifying were his descriptions of the fate of the damned. They cry, they roar for anguish sore, and gnaw their tongues for horror. But get away without delay. Christ pities not your cry. Depart to hell, there may you yell and roar eternally. And on page 46. We will continue next video. I hope you enjoyed.